Facebook. Hi, everyone. It is the 5th of October, 2018. This is the Quantum Healing with Candace show. My name's Candace Craw-Goldman, and I am welcoming beautiful Pamela Aaralyn with me today. But before we even get started about talking about practical enlightenment, I want to give a shout out to my wonderful friend, Greg Prescott of in5d.com, who makes this show possible. I also want to say thank you to all of our Facebook friends who are joining in. I have a second computer over here, and I'm going to be watching and taking any questions maybe while we're going, or at least watching them come in. But welcome, Pamela. It's so nice to see you. So nice to connect with you. It seems like it's been a while.
Yeah, I wore my necklace today to honor our sisterly connection. I love you, and
I love you.
So blessed by you.
Oh, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Today, Pamela and I are talking about practical enlightenment, and you know, I thought it'd be really great, Pamela, if we could start with some simple definition. Well, you know, let's even back up right here. I always forget, the whole world may not know you. It just seems to me like they do, but they might not. So Pamela Aaralyn, please introduce yourself before we get right down to business. Forgive me for that. I guess I'm a little rusty here. Tell us who Pamela Aaralyn is before we get started on practical enlightenment.
Yes. Well, I was born a clear conduit channel. So what that means is that I am in the innocence and grace of God energy at all times. And grace is an incredibly subtle energy. It is the essence of who I am. So when you ask me who I am, the answer is subtle. It cannot be something that we can define in words or try to encapsulate. Yet I started out the physical journey in a body, and I came into my realization and enlightenment in this lifetime by dropping those labels, the cessation of judgment of myself and of others. And it was very interesting because I was catapulted into the New Age community, which is a world full of definitions and the seeking of knowledge. And that's where a lot of people begin their journey. Yet I always had knowledge at my right hand, going, oh my goodness, I have all this knowledge that I want to share with you. And I remember when I was 5 years old, my first experiences were with archangels, Jesus, and God Realized Master, who goes by Sri Ramana Maharshi. And then I have many lives and many masters, so many began to come in at that time. And I have that Christ conscious presence around me since age 5. And a lot of people think that the realization was because of access to that knowledge. And what I began to really grasp and realize is that it has nothing to do with knowledge. It has nothing to do with labels. It has nothing to do with how much my third eye was open, how my access to beings that are allegedly higher than I stopped believing in all that in terms of something being better than, higher than, greater than. And I started to realize over time with all these beings is that they really came to me because I had an innocence and a grace about me. That is the only reason why that and thousands of lives of soul contracts, but we all have that. We all have many lives and many masters, and the whole goal of that is to bring us back to the mastery of knowing who we are, and that we, when we sit before a master, the only true reason to sit before a master and a teacher and someone enlightened is to be guided into our own realization of God in us, and that everything we're seeking allegedly out here, it didn't matter how many beings I saw, how often I talked to Jesus, how many astral projection experiences I had. What I was more interested in was the feeling, how it felt when I meditate, how it felt to just calm down and focus on my own breath, how it felt when my thoughts stopped for a moment. And when I began to realize that that is where it is it being everything that we're seeking, in spiritual definitions, and logical definitions, and educational systems, and religions, and everything that's out there is just a huge, massive distraction from what's in here. And that's when I started to realize that it is so easy. All of us can learn how to breathe. All of us can learn how to access grace with the subtle energies of realizing that we are that, not something out here, right? So I began to slowly extricate myself from teachings in New Age community, and I stopped labeling myself as a New Age teacher or guru. And that's when I started to realize that it wasn't about the knowledge of seeking anything external. So it was amazing, the whole journey of practical enlightenment. So I cannot teach you enlightenment. It is not something that can be taught. I cannot teach you grace because grace is a revelation. I cannot teach you something from a standpoint of knowing something external. I can only exude grace. I can only be a light. I can only shine a light to the light that is you. If you feel that you're in a dark world, I can only shine a light to your own light. And when I began to realize that, all of the names and labels and definitions began to drop. And I realized that it was primarily about getting out of our own way. So I began to teach the very little that I know. And strangely enough, a lot of my students started to come into their realization. They started to come into accessing their gifts naturally, without learning to open their third eye, without learning to astral project, without learning anything. All they did was get out of their own way, which is why I love to share. I can only extend God's love and grace to you, and that is what I'm here for. You teach around enlightenment, you can teach without enlightenment, but it's never it, right? It's never it. It's sort of like saying, I'm going to build a car for you, and you're going to know what it's like to drive it. You won't until you get in. So go into the driver's seat. Understand that you are your own masters. And the whole thing of sitting with the guru is only to bring you into responsibility to learn how to turn off your head and turn on your heart. And as a mother of four, a very busy mother of four, if I can realize God, you can too. So this wasn't about me saying I needed to go into an ashram for a period of time. I needed to, go take a 10-day Sukhasana course, although they're wonderful. It was about me learning how to turn off my head and turn on my heart, and really, really realize the essence of God in me. And it, for me, started out with 20 minutes a day of practice. 20 minutes. So if anyone says you don't have 20 minutes, I'm going to challenge you with that notion. I then met Candace somewhere along the way, and I loved what she was doing. I love the God that she represents because she represents humanity. She represents compassion. She represents discernment and balance and activating your own knowledge of God in you. Something that the masters taught me early on is that if we get out of our head, God is very apparent, which is why I love quantum healing, because it teaches you how to get out of your head and talk to your essence and just become your essence and clear all the accumulated debris of memory that's carried through from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime that's not very apparent when the world is going on in its paradigms and its cultures and its matrix, third-dimensional structuring of beliefs that it teaches us that kind of shuts that off. So I love what Candace does because she helps you turn God on by getting out of your own way. And that is not a religion. If it were, it would be a religion of love. But it is not a religion. It is grace. She is here to represent grace, perception, what she does, which is why I'm here today, to talk about how to bring that into the worlds of your processes, to talk about how it's apparent in process work, to talk even a little bit about how to get out of your head, during quantum healing and during other processes that you may have questions about.
Beautiful. So I love it. We get to hear from you about how you're dropping definitions. I started out asking you to define something, but I'm laughing at myself as I'm saying that because you so beautifully talked about how even with all of these gifts that came to you so early, being able other beings. And I'm hearing a little hiss. I'm sorry, but with your microphone in case that we may need to do that. Jesus may be here. Yeshua may be here. For those of you who have not experienced Pamela on live video before, sometimes it happens. Anyway, as Pamela was talking about speaking with the astral projecting, understanding and gaining these teachings in this marvelous way, I think there's many of us out there who equate that with enlightenment, right? And I'm not sure that that is the kind of definition that you're really talking about here.
It's not, because what I'm trying to share with you and extend to you is in my experiences prior to realization, in my experience as I had my beginning awakening experience, my first samadhi at age 5. So samadhi is the bliss-like experience of, in Kriya they call it Kundalini rising, which is only a part of samadhi, but in many New Age community they call it the awakening. I had that at age 5. So I had all those things, and I thought for sure that's enlightenment because I can see, I can hear, my third eye's open, and I know how to do it, so I can teach you how to do it. It is knowledge, it is an action, so it's easy. So I began to teach people how to open their third eye. I began to teach people how to channel starting at age 24. I've been doing this for about 20 years now. And what I observed along the way is that if you activate external knowledge without really understanding God in you, you will go mad. So I had people going, well, I took all your programs and I went insane and ended up in a mental institution. I am severely depressed. I have severe panic attacks because I don't understand what I'm seeing. My Kundalini is rising and my third eye is opening. I'm seeing something that appears evil and I am scared. So the only way to come into this world, which the world, by the way, automatically programs you with fear. You are programmed with stuff is good, stuff is bad. There is light, there is darkness. There is a dualistic programming that teaches you that you will not survive if you do not fear things. So if you are having all that and you don't really realize who you are first, and that you are God first, you don't fundamentally know who you are. I'll turn up my microphone. I don't know how. Give me a second.
Yeah, take your time, see if you can't get that, because some of our Facebook people are saying they really would like to hear you a little more clearly. It seems sort of like windy or some static going on.
That better? I turned it up.
Yes, I think that is better. What do you think, everybody? And
This is incredibly
yes.
soft.
And Susan Smoddy just said it was better. And isn't that Smoddy? Is that how you spell the word that you were just talking about a minute ago?
Close. It's close. But that one very much does have that essence about her.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, I can hear you better myself. So whatever adjustment you did, that's great, because we want to hear everything that you are saying. Well, I love that. So I really hope everybody has heard that out there, that you don't have to do or experience all of these incredible things that Pamela was talking about to consider yourself on your way to enlightenment, or that you are experiencing any sort of form of enlightenment. Maybe some people think that as soon as you are enlightened, maybe you leave the planet. But isn't there that old saying, chop wood, carry water, before enlightenment, and after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water? I mean, isn't a little bit of that what you're saying here? And maybe you can even gain enlightenment while you're chopping that wood or carrying that water.
You can realize God the quicker you chop wood and carry water, and turn off all the other things that you need to do. So enlightenment is a being state. So it's one of those things where so many people come to me and they're like, well, if I go into your practical enlightenment program and if I begin to realize myself, I realize God, what happens in my relationships, what happens at work, what happens? Well, it's not a matter of external circumstances telling you how you're going to feel and telling you that you shouldn't be that way, and then therefore you don't fit in because you're this enlightened weirdo. However, you will begin to observe on the way in your experiences towards enlightenment, you will begin to observe that a lot of that just seems insane to you. For those of you who are going through awakening experiences, this is what I hear from you. You attempt to go to your jobs. You attempt to be in relationships that no longer serve you because you have outgrown them. It's the contracts that serve you that no longer do, and you're clinging on to them because you're scared of what it might feel like when you realize love. And how insane is that? Love is still going to be love. You're still going to be in beautiful relationships. Will some of them fall away? I don't know. You only know that. You only know if you are still aligned to that relationship anymore. And would you want to cling on to something that no longer aligns in your service? And would it still serve that other person if you go into a place of realization and you no longer align towards that experience with them? If it didn't serve you, that means it doesn't serve them. Why is that true? Because you are not separate from them. In enlightenment, we do not separate the fractals of God that are walking around in bodies in this world. They are you, you are them. If it ends, it means it no longer serves and everyone has expanded. So what are you afraid of?
I have a question for you, Pamela. As you are walking about the world, seeing all of your beautiful fractal brothers and sisters out there, as you are watching them, just walking down the road or in an airport or any place you might be, can you just by looking at their energy field, their aura, passing them in that way, can you kind of see where they are on their path as they move past you in mass? What's that like for you?
Well, let me share a little bit about my story. When I was going through, I had been through 33 samadhi experiences until there was no more experience, until the experiencer became the experience, and then there was nothing between the two. There was just God. At this point, I don't see anything as an experience. It's all God. Walking around, there are a bunch of little me's out there, and upon samadhi number 33, I had been there for quite some time. As a matter of fact, I lost track of hours and days, and became really, really interesting. And I came out of the meditation and my clothes were soaked. I was in a deep, deep meditation, a deep bliss, and I was freezing because my clothes were soaked with tears. And when I opened my eyes, I kind of rubbed them a little bit because my physical vision, I thought, was trying to trick me. I began to see my own cellular energy and my own self in every single being, in every single thing. It didn't matter because I didn't perceive anything as dead. So I could look at the table and see fractals of my own essence and know that I am it, and I created it, and its form is not. It's moving and flowing, and I have to, throughout many of my samadhi experiences, I would see things such as form. And I think my eye prescription changed about a zillion times because I no longer began to see form. So there was some interesting things that happened along the way where I am now almost legally blind, uh, if you want to view it as that. So I don't see the way you do. I only see things in this formless wave of energy that is every God is moving and flowing and breathing throughout every single thing, every single body. And I woke up and I only saw me, and I wept. And I wept some more. And then I tried to explain it, and no one understood. They said, "What kind of, did someone slip some drug into your drink? Did you, are you high?" And then I attempted to have a workshop this way, which was even more interesting because I had the London experience. And one of my clients who met me at the experience said, "Pamela, if I didn't know you better, I would just assume that you're on some drug, that you're high." And I said, "Well, right now I'm mad with God, but I'm not insane. I'm just mad meaning high. I'm just going nuts about God and going nuts about grace, but I'm not insane. I'm just trying to incorporate into a world that does not make any sense in my head anymore and simultaneously is innately beautiful." So there's an adjustment period. There's a settling period. after realization. And that is what I had to go through.
So I have a couple questions about the samadhi experiences. One, a very sort of practical, maybe ridiculous question. How in the world have you kept track? 33. Or did one of your guides keep track for you? How did you know it was 33?
Yeah, I have a teacher in form, and I have many masters. One in particular that I work with in spirit. My guru, Sri Ramana Maharshi, would keep track very easily. Some people would say that you cannot work with a guru in spirit, but you can if you are accessible to grace. You can if you carry a certain innocence, because I was born not judging anything. I was born without judgment. And because of that experience, and I can definitely share and teach with you how not to judge. It's one of the courses in the Practical Enlightenment. It's how to turn off judgment, how to access grace. We just taught both of those beautiful classes, and they're still available right now. So we learn, we teach you, and I call this the great undoing. We slowly teach how to undo the programs. Some of those programs are religious programs. Some of those programs are programs of shame, which you are shaming yourself over and over again. We allow you access to have you try to observe your negative beliefs that come from those programs, and then you turn off belief. And this is another thing I love about quantum healing and the way that you specifically do it, because I noticed that in observing you with people, that you teach people how to get their head out of the way.
Yeah, we definitely attempt to do that, because it's some of that programming, and so much of it's just habit. It's repetition and habit, because you think you don't have another choice, but you really do. That's one really interesting thing about doing some of this work, is some people can actually get to the point where they see right before they decide to believe something, or right before they decide to act on a belief, even right before that, they're deciding whether or not it's still a belief that they want to hold, keep, and express. You have the power to change some of those programs and beliefs, and that's great that you're telling us a little bit about what's coming up in your program. So I've got more questions about samadhi stuff, though, but I definitely want to hear more about your program. What I want to know, so the samadhi experiences, two more questions at least. One is, did they build upon each other?
Yes, absolutely.
So each one went, okay.
Okay.
And
a little backwards in that. I do things a little backwards. So in most of the branches of yoga, there are 8 branches of yoga, and in as a yogi, and I only say I'm a yogi because I've mastered one asana. That's all it takes in my program to become a yogi, is to master one asana. Can you sit cross-legged like this for an amount of time comfortably, and be within your grace and within your essence, and have your head turned off, and be thoughtless in that time? That is how you master an asana. So asana is one branch. Samadhi is one branch. And I kind of went about it backwards, because I have many masters, right? One of my masters, Guru Dev, taught me something called Transcendental Meditation. And while I have to legally say that I am not certified by any master on this earth, I can only tell you what my master taught me. And it didn't take a program to do that. So there were certain little tips that he taught me about accessing what I call source tones. And in source tones, there were certain words that you can find given by God or a realized master. So you can have access to those source tones. A realized master can give you those source tones. And if you feel in your heart an alignment to it, what you do is say it over and over in a certain way in your mind, in a certain way. And it quiets out the thoughts. And we, in yoga, we call this point of focus. That's called the dhyana. So that's spelled Dharana, which is another branch of pratyahara. So what that does is that kind of turns off everything that's an external focus. So when you have egoic thoughts in your mind, when I mean ego, I don't mean arrogance. I just mean your head, just thought, right? We're programmed with it from birth, and it automatically teaches you to be fearful. So we're turning that off for a little while so that we can feel something that is wordless, definitionless, so that we can feel God's grace, which is subtle. You can't hear. Grace is subtle, like a feather. Your thoughts are like a brick. So if you drop a brick on a feather, how do you think you're going to feel in your enlightenment experiences? This is what I was noticing from time to time, is that people were going in and out of samadhi, in and out of samadhi, constantly seeking, having a burning desire for the samadhi, which is beautiful, by the way. You want that burning desire for God. Believe me, it is beautiful that you want this knowledge. However, if you access it prior to knowing the tricks of the body, knowing how to unite yourself with breath, really understanding this beautiful form that you've created called the body, even though you are not it, you are choosing to incorporate God with it at this time. And if you ignore it by sitting in samadhi all the time, it could be an interesting experience for you that can actually cause some discomfort. And that's me putting it mildly. You're going to be afraid of what you see. So in my samadhi experiences, I started out with overcoming fear of what I was seeing, because I went at it backwards. But I did turn on all the other branches of yoga by understanding the point of focus with sound, with divine sound. And with that combination of that and breath, those two things made all the other branches of yoga just go boom, 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 boom. And I just didn't really have much of a need for the rest of them, although I did practice them over the course of time, just out of understanding the experience and wanting the experience. I didn't really have the necessity to practice those other branches of yoga.
I probably could do this whole show asking you about samadhi. I'm still on that one. So, we have so many wonderful people watching, and so many of your fans are here listening. And I'm one of your biggest fans. I love you so much. Please tell me, can some of us have had a samadhi experience, but just not know that that's what it was called?
Yes.
How would we know that we had that?
New Agers are now calling it something. They're calling it Kundalini rising, which is only 1 out of 5 branches of samadhi experiences. And
Wow.
And if
So
are
you going to teach us what the others are in Practical Enlightenment? Do we find out what that is?
Yes.
Is that part of your
course? Find out what that is, but we don't start there. We start with something that's a lot more easy. We start with breath. And we start with divine source tones. We start with point of focus, which is finding your unique source tone and your unique God sound is what I call it. Another person who's really good at this is Stuart Pearce. I just did some work with him in London, and this is why I love his work, because you can immediately go into those experiences. However, what I find is that if you, and he teaches this as well, if you don't master breath, it can literally cause for some fear, because fear is programmed into you, which is why, by the way, I love what you do, because it teaches you to undo those programs and kind of get out of your own way so that you can even handle the samadhi. So I teach in the original way of kind of combining, but starting with a branch of yoga that is not samadhi. It is called yama. So I start with that, and I start with pratyahara, which is where I started. I had to turn off the experiencing because it was a bit too much. This is why so many people come to me and just say, I see things, I hear things, and I can't even handle traffic. I can't even handle going to work right now. I can't even handle raising my kids and being in a relationship right now. So I start with yama and the pratyahara. Yama is the understanding of rightful use of energy, how to use your energy in a way that serves you and others. It means learning how to be authentic and true to yourself. We call this in New Age community authenticity, is what you guys have been calling it, and nonviolent violence. So that's just whatever you're saying, you're making sure that what you're saying is not of harm. And you're making sure that what you're feeling and thinking about yourself is also not of harm. This is called non-judgment, which is why I teach a class called Judgment Detox, which releases you from harming yourself with judgment. Judgment is the biggest block. If you want to believe in blocks, that would be the biggest deterrent towards realization of God.
Okay. You're using a lot of terms from yoga, and of course, many of us have heard a lot of these terms. And And as I was listening to you speak a little bit about practical enlightenment on another show that you were doing that is on your channel on YouTube, which was super great, by the way, I started thinking a little bit about, because you did talk a lot about particularly the American or Western culture concept of a lot of this stuff. And so, of course, we Americans, Canadians, Europeans, we've embraced yoga over the last couple of decades. And many of us loosely throw around some of these terms. Some teachers do, and other teachers completely ignore them. They just focus on, make sure your leg is like this, and we're working on balance, and now you're going to do, downward facing dog or whatever. But we're still, even in yoga, we're focusing really as Westerners kind of on the doing again, aren't we? Which is,
and that's okay. That is the asana branch, of yoga. So what that means is you're and these asanas, they're basically means like your pose, right? If you cannot master your thought, the mind is very tricky. So yoga is unique in this way because it teaches you to master the body first and your breath. You have no choice when you are sitting there in a unique contorted branch of yoga but to breathe, because if you don't, you're likely going to fall over. So for those of you who are practice yogis out there, you know what I'm talking about, in vinyasana, and we call that flow yoga. What that means is you focus on your breath, and that allows you to go from pose to pose. And in Western yoga, we don't do so much of that, but what we would do is to focus on one asana for a long period of time. And then we'll go to another asana, and we do not do another asana. However, the mind programming is so strong in the West. It is so strong that I think it's beautiful that you're mastering all the asanas, and well, you're experiencing all the asanas. You cannot truly master an asana until you've turned your head off and learned to breathe in the asana for a longer period of time. So you will see yogis in the West sitting in tree pose forever and ever and ever and ever. And don't worry, it doesn't mean that you're not going to access grace and go into realization without mastering 84 asanas, because there are originally 84 asanas, and those are just the unknown ones. The known ones, there are plenty more unknown. But you are doing a branch of yoga because your heads are going so fast that you need to focus a little bit on body, because that'll force you to focus on breath. And when you're focusing on breath and body simultaneously, then you will go into pratyahara. It will naturally pull you into pratyahara, which is turning off external senses and going within. So that's good too. There's nothing wrong with that branch of yoga. It is amazing and beautiful. I love it. I'm just here to teach you about the everything of enlightenment, not just one way. I'm here to teach you all the many ways that might be practical in your daily lifestyle. Because in my daily lifestyle as a mom, I get up, I rush kids off to school, I'm like, doing this, doing that, so I teach to spend a little bit of yoga time, about 20 minutes in an asana, even if it's just sitting in cross-legged. We call this the Sukhasana. So in the Sukhasana, it's, here you go. Your fingertips are like this. Many of you have seen it. And you put those on your knees and you cross your legs. You can look that up on Google. That's the first asana. And it took me about 38 years to learn just it. So that's because I had kids and I have a business and I have things that I really, really enjoy creating. So in my specific type of sadhana is another word for your spiritual practice. In my spiritual practice, it was incredibly important for me to continue creating. And I love creativity. I love the fact that what I'm bringing to the world is an extension of love, where you get to bring your essence into the body. I don't teach that you are not the body. I'm going to say that again for those of you yogis out there. I do not teach that you are not the body. Now, my masters taught me that, which is really, really interesting. And you will notice that most masters, upon realization, their body goes, oh, I'm not the body. Bye-bye. So what does that mean to you? You view them as dead. And even though they aren't dead, that is what the rest of the world viewed them as, dead. So if you want a body and you are here to create in a body, you have to stop saying, I am not the body. Now I understand that the program is incredibly useful when your head is so strong. However, you're putting another program in, which makes the body literally die. So here's what I started saying instead. And this helped me in a deeper stage of my realization when I began to say, I am not just a body. However, God is operating through the beautiful sacred temple of this body. So I am not just a body. Okay, just switch your wording up a little bit. Program is real tricky. These brain programs are tricky.
I think that is such an amazing distinction, and a beautiful one, and one that, I mean, I'm getting, I've known you for a while now, but I'm getting so excited about some of this new stuff because I have felt a little bit disconnected by some of these more accepted ideas, and I kind of have shrugged at, some people who have talked in that way, where and maybe it's because I've had so many challenges with my body. The whole idea of you are not your body, just don't pay attention to your body or whatever. It's like, are you kidding me? I have to. It's making me. There's no way to set this aside. I don't know what you're even talking about. So I think a lot of people are going to align with some of what you're saying. I have a question about the asanas too. In the same way I asked the question about the samadhi, is can you, without being in a yoga class, having a teacher or anything, can you find yourself kind of by happenstance or just naturally in an asana? And yes. Because you said there were so many, 84 recognized, and maybe.
Can I tell you my story with that?
Yeah.
I actually have a story with that. When I was a little girl, I didn't really understand anything about what a yogi was. And now when I was older, someone asked me, who am I? And this is before I had really mastered the self-inquiry process. And I said, I am a yogi. And it came out of my mouth before I even knew what that was, right? And this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So when I said that, publicly, however, when I was a little girl, I didn't really know those terms, but my mother would catch me standing in this position, and she thought it was from dance class until I think she went to my teacher and she was like, why is my daughter standing like an ostrich? Why is my daughter standing like a flamingo? Like, why does she have one leg down and one leg perched up and really like rested on her thigh? This is really, really strange, and she's gonna lose her balance and fall over. So mom was like, stop doing that. That looks so weird. Why are you always doing that? But it was something that was kind of, we call this a karma, that I really like to address, that all karma means is accumulated memory. So this comes in at the cellular level and kind of follows you around, and you could choose to keep it or let it go. Simple as that. And that's why processes like Candace's exist, to help you choose to continue it or let it go. So within that, I was carrying some accumulated memory, some karma, that would teach me, to help me remember that I am yogi, that is a role. It's not that I am that, it's just a role that I needed to remember for this lifetime.
I see. Okay, excellent. So here's something else I want to ask too. I know that I'm kind of focusing on a theme though, but that's a little bit like, it's almost like talking about the people who aren't even watching or who aren't even there. But it may be, some of the people who are watching have these kind of people in their lives. So that's, I think, I have a specific interest in that right now, because I have some dear, dear friends who have absolutely no idea about anything that I do, anything that you do. They're still my friends. I still see them. They're still wonderful. I think that they're really following kind of their own internal spiritual practice, where I watch what's going on with them, and they would tell you they know nothing about enlightenment, nothing about sadhana. Did I say that right? Sadhana, devotion to a spiritual practice. But it's as if they are kind of all on their own. I find that absolutely fascinating. And they just say to me, some of these friends just say, yeah, I just don't know what it is. I just kind of cry all the time right now. Just don't worry about me. And I'm like, I think I know what's going on with you.
Yeah. And
And
it
I mean,
is
cry in
because
a happy
they,
way. Cry
yeah,
in like
yeah,
at the drop of a hat out of
yeah,
joy.
yeah. That is one of the many types of samadhi, is that bliss. There's a branch of part of samadhi that involves an immense blissful experience, like an God ecstasy. And it can naturally, spontaneously occur, although rare. It can spontaneously occur when those people have probably been so in an inner world that they don't have as much programming of uh, judgment towards themselves, much less judgment towards others. They don't have as much programming towards compulsion, uh, attachments towards things and people. We are programmed primitively in that way to not naturally have the access to the subtlety of grace. So you will notice that some people that, like you just described, are naturally very innocent. You know, they can't perceive harm in people. They can't perceive goodness or evil. They just view everything as love. And those people naturally, more than likely, are spending a lot of time in their gardens. You know, they're performing their sadhana in a way that's natural to them. You know, and we
Yeah.
see this a lot in ashrams. You know, this is the chopping wood, carrying water part. And this is the branch of yoga that allows you to, this is called niyama. So niyama literally means that you are observing, being positive and helpful towards yourself and others. So it's like finding this contentment within yourself as a self-reflection part of this branch of enlightenment, this part of enlightenment.
So another thing that I really liked about you talking about practical enlightenment is this idea that we have to get some things done first before we can head towards enlightenment. You know, well, I've got this pressing thing going on, or I have to take care of this first. Or we kind of think of it in this linear way, as it's a thing to do and a chore to fit in, or a program to complete that necessitates other things being off of our plate. And my understanding of your program is this is for you to start no matter where you are. And even the idea that you have to eliminate things or get over things or fix some things first before you can focus on your enlightenment is kind of a misunderstanding about what enlightenment even is to begin with. And I think that is a very exciting idea here. And I would love to know more about some of the things you will focus on in the program that'll help us fully realize this.
So firstly, I must comment that if you are separating anything, again, you are separating earth. You are separating God on earth. When you say, I must do this for someone else, I must put more focus on my job, I must put more focus on my relationship. Your job, your relationship are to be incorporated into your sadhana. You don't let them go. What you do is you breathe life into them because you are them. And when you say that you are separate from that, as if I get quite a kick out of this, you know, some of my online spiritual communities, when people say, I'm going to create a private Facebook because, yeah, many of some of you watching know what I'm talking about, because my religious relatives, will judge me. Okay, what part of you is still judging that they will judge you? Do you want to carry that accumulated karma further and further? The truth is, you don't know. You think you know. This is a very tricky ego programming where mind steps in and says, oh, my mom will never have any of that. Okay. Is that more important to you than realizing God? All right. Or do you sit before that and you understand that the love that you have for your mother and the love that she has for you as God, it can't be separate. So she is either going to accept you or she's going to back away for a little while until she does. But either way, you can't separate God. You just can't. It's not possible. It is insane to not understand that the world is your ashram. The world is your temple. Your cubicle at your job is your greatest temple right now, and your teacher is your insane boss. Thank that. Thank that accumulated karma for coming through, because it's another loving way that God is trying to show you how to release judgment of her so that she can stop judging you, so that you can stop judging your job as bad and honor it as your greatest teaching experience on this planet.
That's really beautiful. I wrote down another word that you said when you were talking about practical enlightenment, pratyahara, gaining mastery over external circumstances. I mean, that is probably one of the most important things any of us can learn in this crazy, chaotic world, because if you pay attention to how fast and how big and how complex and how much is thrown at us every day, and think that you can handle all that first before taking care of yourself or your own heart, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm looking forward to see how we can learn how to do that better.
Yeah, absolutely. So pratyahara, the prati part of it, that means to withdraw, draw in, or draw back. Ahara means food. So what is food to you? And yes, that is physical. I mean that very literally, that you are going to need to become disciplined about how you're feeding yourself, both with what you put in your mouth and what energetic frequencies you are pulling into your circumstances. So there are many pratyahara practices that bring you into what's called focused concentration. So in focused concentration, this is a part of pratyahara. You literally go in and you focus on your breath as a point of focus. This is called prana. So with prana, you're focusing on, you're feeding yourself with your own. Prana literally means chi or life force. So you are feeding yourself. This is why many of you who followed my journey, you remember when I had times where I was sun gazing, I had times where I was experiencing earthing, I had times where I would go into meditations for days and cancel your appointments for a while. Sorry about that. There was a reason. So that was pratyahara. And if this happens in spiritual communities as well, that you are overwhelmed with teachings. You're like, well, so-and-so is teaching, focusing on the violet flame. Okay, that's a point of focus that you can pull into your practice. You don't have to stop doing what you're already doing. However, you need to simplify. You can't have 50 million different practices that are just basically obstructing you from such a simple thing as breath. When you have so many practices, then what you're doing, if you don't incorporate them into the simplicity of breath and pratyahara and feeding yourself with everything, then basically you're going to go into this idea that everything is external. And this is where we start out with these programs. When we believe that we are only a body, then what we believe is that all this is overwhelming. This is why so many people leave spiritual communities, because they're like, well, you're teaching this and this spiritual's teaching that, and I just can't keep up. All right, don't. Don't. Pratyahara is a matter of honoring the practice of breath, sitting in an asana, and just going within and having a point of focus. I don't care what your point of focus is, but I have many that are really, really good that brought me, into realization. So you do that because initially we are taught that everything is external and that everything's hard. After realization, you don't see it that way anymore. You will be energized by alleged external circumstances because you understand that there is no further experience or experiencer. The experience and the experiencer have become one. Therefore, you take responsibility for everything. I remember prior to realization, I'm like, I can't do as many sessions. I can't handle all this stuff. I can't. Oh my God. And my masters were going, pratyahara, pratyahara, pratyahara. and I listened. Okay. And I turned the world off for a bit. And some of you were worried, because the body was kind of falling away a little bit. Okay. And then after realization, I went, oh my God, it's all me. I can be responsible for it all. Sure, send me some emails. Sure, send me some messages. Sure, drop by my office. I created this. We created each other, and I got this. I feel like I have the energy of a bumblebee on some sort of ecstasy or something. Except it's not like a drug ecstasy. It's like God ecstasy. I'm mad with God.
That's it's a fascinating thing to mention though, because I actually was wondering a little bit about that. I was wondering this morning about people who either have addictions or addicted behavior and to anything, substances or chemicals or even repetition. Some of us can be addicted to just simply scrolling on Facebook. And I wonder sort of these, are we trying to do some sort of self-soothing in a distracted sort of way when we really want some of these things that you're talking about? Isn't that what we're really yearning for? And we substitute some of that with these addictions. And what do you tell people who are maybe struggling with habits or addictions that they know aren't the best, but they don't really feel like they have a whole lot of control over them?
In practical enlightenment, we call that rightful use of energy. So you simply become aware, and these practices help you become more aware when you're sitting in an asana for even a short amount of time, and the point of focus is breath, and you learn how to turn off your thought. When you come out of that stage, you become hypervigilant. Because you are accessing grace. When you're quiet, your thoughts are quiet, you have more access to the subtlety that is the grace of God. So when you open your eyes and you go about your day, we call this meditating without meditating. That's what my master taught me. He said at that point in time, you don't need to go sit in meditation for 2.5 hours a day because you are observing your rightful use of energy. And when something's coming along that is not rightful use of energy, you no longer feel compelled. Compulsions, habits, things of that nature, attachments begin to fall away. And this is when most of you say, I don't know why, but Facebook is really bothering me, and I'm actually going to take a break from it for a while. You are honoring the branch of yoga that I call rightful use of energy. It's called Brahmacharya or Brahmacharya, depending on your dialect. So in Brahmacharya, basically you are simply observing what is rightful use of your energy, what is serving you and your sadhana, your spiritual practice, and what is not. It is as simple as that.
So even beginning some of these small, very quick practices, some of that will just kind of begin aligning in our lives without too much, because I think what a lot of people think is that it's kind of this matter of willpower. And I think what I'm hearing you say is if you give some attention to some of these practices, even in a small time way, it will just sort of naturally happen without a whole lot of pushback or use of willpower. Is that true?
It is, and this is what I love about some of the tips that were taught to me by Guru Dev that are also taught in Transcendental Meditation, except he taught me a little differently. So my way of honoring his practice involves what I call source tones. So he gives me certain tones that honor the divine creator within me and that bring me home. This is what he said. He said, you're going home right now. And believe me, that feels so good when you say, I want to go home. I hear that a lot in New Age community, but the kingdom of God is in here. Home is in here. You have universes upon universes upon universes in you. And I literally mean that. I mean that not just like the metaphor of your heart. I mean in your cells. I mean this quite literally. There's a science to this that Yogananda taught me. So basically speaking, we're coming at this from the scientific way, which is what Yogananda brings to me to bring to you, or coming at this from the way of honoring source tones and turning on the dhyana, which is the focused concentration through source tones, which is similar to TM. It's taught by Guru Dev to me, and it's taught by Transcendental Meditation masters around the world as well. Except, like I said, he taught me very specifically and uniquely and differently. I'm not affiliated with Transcendental Meditation, and I am not licensed to teach you anything or to certify you in Transcendental Meditation. But I was taught by all these masters that taught the world these specific practices like Kriya, okay? Taught to me by Yogananda and Babaji. So between the two of them, it happened naturally. I did not have to go get certified by it, nor do I hold a an affiliation. I just have my own way taught by my masters. So when you do all these things, the rest of the branches of yoga, but there's not that you don't need them, it's that they become easier and easier and easier. You find yourself just automatically honoring the first branch of yoga, which is yama, which is the rightful use of energy. There's a branch of that is the brahmacharya, which is rightful use of energy. Habits and compulsions just go away. It's not as hard. So for those of you saying, well, this is hard, and I need time, and I need this, and I need that, I am a mother of 4 in a current, dedicated, committed relationship. So out of anybody, if I can do it as a mother of 4 in a relationship, you can too.
That's just great. So just to kind of sum that up a little bit, people who find distractions or addictions or habits or compulsions, is it correct to say that they kind of maybe feel like they are searching for their home there, but that's they're trying to replace that. It's kind of a stopgap, but it's, you know, once you realize the real way, which is within, you know, a beautiful quantum healer that I know named Lori Paulina just started a YouTube channel. I love him so much. And in his very first video there, he was talking about the word inspire, and then he was relating it to the word inspiration, which is, of course, breathing in. And I thought that was so brilliant. And I think that really connects here to some of the things that you were saying. And my own mother, who breathed so shallowly, so much of her life, our entire family just used to look at her and go, breathe. Because she just would breathe right here. And she was so anxious so much of her life. And if we could all just use more of our lungs, I think a lot of us are guilty of this, sort of using just the top part of our lungs, you know, for a great part of the day. This idea of breathing more can bring us more energy, but more inspiration just by taking a deep breath.
Yeah, absolutely. We call that pranayama, which is the 4th branch of yoga. And it is to be used with all the other branches that I just mentioned. And it's, we think of it as a simple thing, but most people have no idea who they are fundamentally, much less knowing how to breathe in a body. So if we think about the body for a moment, I want you to just think about how beautiful and complex and sophisticated this machine, this tool is. I mean, we have cells that are dying and being reborn and dying and being reborn all the time, right? And and we basically are so busy running here, running there, doing this, doing that. Mastery of the body requires breath. You notice when we are not honoring the body, automatically in anxiety, you get a shallow breath, and the breath starts to go all over the place. In Practical Enlightenment, we teach you the mastery of that. And some of you are going to say that's boring. That alone, as the pointed focus, that practice alone with focused concentration can bring you to enlightenment. So it doesn't matter that you think that you have to have all of these practices honored. It's helpful to have a lot of different branches of enlightenment to go towards in yoga. However, focusing on your breath so that you can master the body has to come first. Why? Because it's the easiest. The mind will trick you into all sorts of things, and there's so many processes out there to teach you to master the mind, but the mind's a tricky little thing. You know, the mind just tells you, oh, you still have this belief, you're not healed. Oh no, you're suffering, you still have an emotion, so you better view it as pain because you're not healed, and which means we need to do something else. Breath is not doing. You know, so we master the breath within the body because it's easier to master than your head. Your head will try to trick you over and over and over again. There are tons of tricks. And it's trickery all the way around. The ego's trickery.
You know, I'm not a person who will probably ever go get a tattoo, although I've found myself with those temporary ones at times. But I've always thought if I ever did get one, or maybe I'll go get myself a whole pack of temporary ones that just say breathe. But just say breathe. And I think that's beautiful and a great first way to start all of this. So we've been talking for about an hour. Why don't you tell us how someone can find your Practical Enlightenment program? When does it start? How does it work? How long is it? All the details about it, please.
Yeah, I started sharing it just a few weeks ago on my Patreon community. So that's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Pamela Aaralyn, my name. And that's if you want to take it from a group perspective. And it's very, very affordable. I think the first I think it's like $13 a month, and then it gets higher from there. And then if you want to work one-on-one with me to become a little bit more accountable for it and just get very, very deep into it, which I highly recommend. Um, and I recommend that for a reason I'll tell you about in a moment, but you can find me there at PamelaAaaralyn.com. If you click on mentorship, any of those programs will bring you into practical enlightenment. So that's what that's about. And so many people ask me the question, do you need to sit with a guru? Do you need to sit with an enlightened being? And you don't if you are accessible all the time, 24/7, to the subtle aspect of grace. If you can view everything as innocence, if you can view everything as love, go on with yourself, and you do not need a master. If you have any degree of judgments or attachments or habits whatsoever, if you have any of that going on, you are likely going to need a master or a guru or a teacher to bring you into a true guru. The only definition of that is someone who brings you into your own mastery. That is my only definition of guru. Someone who holds you accountable and responsible, so that you can't just say you're doing that and then not be doing it. A guru will know, because a guru is normally often a mystic, and we will check in on you. So many people who work in my program are like, did you seriously just come into my dream? I'm like, you're darn straight I did. Did you seriously just check in while I was meditating and make sure that I had that asana right? I'm like, yeah, I did. And I told you when you didn't have it right, and you heard it, didn't you? So that's a little bit how I work. So many people say, I saw you in a dream. I saw you in the astral realm. This is how a guru will work with you. As well as sitting before you either in person or on Zoom or in any other way that's accessible to you. You don't need to come out, onto my land and property and come sit before me if you don't have the money for the plane ticket and don't have the time. Just another whole other thing, this time conundrum that people feel like they don't have any of it. Uh, I've made it so simple. I teach it for free on YouTube as well, for those of you who don't want to pay for it at all, because you already are enlightened. You just need to simply realize it. And these practices help you realize what you already are, which is light. So if you don't want to put any investment in it, that's fine too. Follow me on YouTube. We give it once a month, and you'll see some teachings there as well. I have given it to you from the free to the expensive. So whatever you want to invest in, you cannot say it's not within your budget.
That's just perfect and so generous of you, Pamela. So there's no real start date. Nobody's going to miss anything. It's all kind of recorded and available either on YouTube or on Patreon.
Yep, it is available. The program started 3 weeks ago, and the replays are right there on Patreon, and you can find them there. And and if you want to be taught one-on-one with me, I will give you everything just in these one-on-one experiences, either in person or on Zoom. You could come to the in-person events that I have coming up. I have one of them coming up in November. So you can find that event on my website. If you go to the website, click on events, there's just so many ways to have access, because I believe that this grace is accessible because you are it. There's no way to not be in grace, and the fundamentals of what I exude and share with you is grace. I cannot teach you grace, but I am an extension of grace on this planet right now. And that was very, very interesting when my in-body teachers and my spirit masters both came to me and gave me that title, Avatar of Grace. I went, whoa, I really don't know what you want me to do with it. And they said, oh, you already are. Don't worry about it. So remember, you cannot not be it. You're all avatars of grace. And my only job is to exude that and to remind you of the light that you already are.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Well, before we go, I want to tell you or thank you because you had me sort of realize something during this program with you today, and that is, some of what I do, the BQH, the quantum healing sessions. Sometimes, some of the most important thing about that is the simple relaxation of the body in a nice position with a spine alignment and with some deeper breathing. So this all kind of works together in such a beautiful way, and it feeds off of each other. And I also want to say, for those of you who are fans out there, Pamela has a code. It's Pamela Aaralyn, her whole name, Pamela Aaralyn in capital letters 10. And if you use that code, if you go find and are interested in the Beyond Quantum Healing course, the BQH course, you can get 10% off of a course just by using her name. You can also get 10% off by using Greg Prescott's N5D 10 code as well. Either one of those codes will get you 10% off the course if you're interested in doing this kind of work that I've been doing now for more than 10 years. It's astonishing. It's so entertaining, enlightening, and my curiosity just keeps going, because just when you think you've seen it all, more and more shows up. One of my recent sessions, which was online, which was amazing. So the video captured this, and I'm working with the gal on it. She was like, okay, they're here right now and they're healing me, and her body is like, you don't see a being there, or maybe some of you would, maybe you would, Pamela, but you actually see parts of her body being adjusted and rocked. And she's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. Look at what's going on with my body. And it was fascinating. So there's so much more going on. We're accepting more in our lives. We're accepting more magic, more everything, right? I guess more of what's real, more love, and more of God. And I love that. I love that you are here to help us with that, Pamela. And in my own very special way, I love that you are my friend. Thank you so much. My beautiful, beautiful dear friend, Pamela Aaralyn. All right, well, we've been at this for more than an hour. Is there anything you would like to close with, my dear Pamela?
Be the grace that you already are.
Will do. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us on Facebook, whoever's joining us later. And once again, thank you to Greg Prescott and N5D.com for sponsoring the Quantum Healing with Candace show. Thank you, everybody. Till next time.